We began the month of April with an adjusted cash balance of $93,145,040. We had total receipts of $8.7 million and total expenditures of $13.8 million for a net decrease in cash of $5,140,507. Our balance on hand at the end of the month was $88,004,533. Some notable items for the month are that we collected $1 million in PSC property tax, as well as $1.1 million in utility taxes. Our operating expenditures have been fairly consistent with last year. Our student transportation costs are lower, but that it just appears to be a timing with our bus purchases. We have some outstanding POs. And we had debt service payments of $1.6 million this last month. Thank you.
You mentioned the PSC property tax of $1 million. Was that for? Have you received the numbers for April yet, or was that from March? Is that correct?
That is for April.
From March?
For April.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, my sheet says that was in March, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
Remaining in the room, just an amazing group of people that I've had the opportunity to get to know and to work with this year as a beginning superintendent in the state of Kentucky. You'll see who they just moved to their suits that just moved to the front. So either we're getting audited or, I'm not sure. But I think they're evaluating me. But this is Mr. Fred Carter. I had a chance to get to know Fred actually before my first board meeting, and Fred works for KESA with the Beginning Superintendent Training Program. There's a series of requirements. He's been flexible and adapted the program to make sure that it's meaningful to every superintendent, but including me. They also assign mentors, and a mentor, which is assigned, I didn't pick him, but if I had a choice, I would have picked the person, is Dr. D.L. Liggins. D.L. is the superintendent in Lexington, Fayette County. So both of them are here tonight, and I believe that they will say just a few words after the presentation. So I'm going to give, instead of a capstone presentation, we have leadership standards in the state of Kentucky, and I have gone through them ad nauseum, honestly, all 7 of them in detail, and that's uploaded to the agenda. And if you want to hear detailed explanations about all 7 of them, you can look from about October to April. So those are all there, about 30-minute presentations. You've had the opportunity to sit through and enjoy those with me. But also, we compiled all of those into about exactly 28 slides. If you'd like to see those are available. So I thought tonight, as a sort of culmination of the year, I would take the opportunity, number one, because I had to, and number two, as a sort of a different approach, was to sort of take those leadership standards and embed them not directly into the standards, but to connect them to our strategic plan. The strategic plan is located on the back of the wall there, and really to do a progress report, right? So it's an end-of-the-year progress report of the things that we accomplished together in 2024-25. Many of them are previews to changes that will be coming in 2025-26, and then I'll give just a quick update on what I anticipate looking forward as we prepare for 2026-27. I'll be here before you know it. So in going through these things, I'm also taking advantage of opportunities to speak to various community groups during the month of May. I know I'm speaking to Rotary on Monday. I had the opportunity to speak to Business Association last week. And so there's just a couple reminders of who we are before we get into what I would consider some of the hallmarks that we've achieved this year together. And so real quickly, as you know, 3,700 employees, 20,600 students. We have, if you look at our priority populations, we have 6,300 students of color, 2,000 English learners, and 10,800 free and reduced. Our annual budget, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a fun question to throw out when you're at groups. What's our annual budget? And, a lot of people will say, $4 million or something like that. And we're the 5th largest employer in all of northern Kentucky. What we do, quite clearly, we provide all students with vibrant learning experiences that are grade level appropriate. And if you look at our academic data from our 23-24 report card, we're really proud of much of the success that we've had. Our graduation rate's 96%. You can see some of our average composite scores and our proficiency rates. Recently, a report from Harvard University, and it was reported out, looked at the 100 school districts across the United States that have higher performance scores in 2024 than in 2019. That's significant because which school districts have closed the achievement gap, have closed the learning loss that was a result of COVID. And of the 100 school districts, we're the only school district in Kentucky to have done that. Our 2024 scores are higher than 2019, and we're the 10th largest school district in the United States that's accomplished that. So, that's just some examples of the great work we're doing and how our data is trending upwards. And I have some examples of the programs. So I'd be remiss not to mention that. And so now, real quickly, if you look, and it's all over our website, we have 4 tenets of our strategic plan. It's world-class education. We'll talk about that first. Empowered workforce, stakeholder engagement, and then operations and resource optimization. And again, I'm going to highlight just 18 of what I would consider the most significant accomplishments of this year. And, as I said, we're going to hit the ground listening. When you plant a tree, they say that it's sleep, creep, and then leap. The third year's when it grows. That's what my wife says. She's an environmental scientist. So we've really just kind of taken it easy this year. We have 18, so watch out next year. We're gonna move from a crawl to a sprint, I hope. If you look at some of our overall goals in terms of world-class education, the first thing that I'm really proud that we've accomplished as a team, and I don't know if you all are welcome to share any of these successes, because really they're your all successes that I'm just presenting. The first thing is that we created a timeline to identify common curriculum instruction assessment. That didn't exist. Part of the reason was under the state mandates of who was allowed to adopt curriculum. There was site-based decision-making. But we just shared with you data related to poverty, related to our English learners, and we have a lot of high-mobility students moving between schools. And when they move between schools, what happens? Well, it's a different pacing guides, different curricular, different resources, and so it just exacerbates the learning loss. And so we came together and said, within the next 4 years, we need to make sure that there are certain things that are systemic. We're still allowing for autonomy in our schools and in our classrooms related to some of the instructional strategies, the differentiated practices. However, we realized that there were certain things that we felt compelled to make sure that we're system-wide. And so you can look on here, I won't go through all the details, but it's the timeline by which we will have common curricular components, common assessment, and certain common instructional practices district-wide. Because when students are forced to move at perhaps 4 elementary schools in a year, the fact that we are not singing from the same hymnal was a disadvantage to our priority populations. And we owe it to all students, but particularly our students of poverty that have to go between schools, to make sure that we minimize the disruption. There's already disruption that takes place. They're learning a whole new school environment. Also, when they move, we were purchasing, in some cases, 4 different $150 resources for a subject, which makes 0 sense. This also makes us much more efficient. So this is something that had never existed at Boone County Schools. So we now have that in place, and you can sort of see the progression and timeline by which we will have this completed over the next 4 years. Next, amplifies CKLA. It's an example, the first example of and I won't go through the process by which we adopted a unified curriculum that will reduce disparities for students in our underserved areas. And you can see the timeline by which we're rolling out common curriculum in language arts. And again, it's not that the curricular resources at our schools were bad. We simply went with HQIR, high quality instructional resources, but we basically said we have to pick one because it is not effective to have our students moving between different resources from school to school. and we know that most negatively impacts our students of poverty and our English learners. So this is the first time we've ever done that. It was a lot of work, a lot of retraining, additional professional development for schools that move from one language arts resource to another. And I'd be remiss to not thank the teachers, particularly who have switched curriculum in some cases, kind of understanding the why behind doing it, but also knowing that it's a lot of work to switch from one to another. So next, we're moving towards new K-12 screening diagnostic assessments. Again, it's a standardization of those. It's overall part of our overall goal to make sure that all of our students are evaluated using the same criteria. It makes our data comparable across different schools and grade levels. It makes us more efficient. It actually comes at a lower cost. And so it allows us for more district-wide professional development and more support. So that's another component. Next, of course, as you're well aware, we discussed this last month. Last month, the board approved district-wide adaptation and adoption of system-wide multi-language communication, classroom communication tools. As we know, years ago we had dual language immersion programs that required we'd have a Spanish teacher and an English teacher, for example. Now with technology, we're able to make sure the students with speaking 120 languages are able to understand the instruction in real time. We're the first school district, we will be the first school district in Kentucky to have this translation service for every student, all 20,600 students, every classroom in every school. And we know that our students will continue to receive high-quality English learner support from our EL staff, and we know that our students are also, through the immersive learning experience, are learning English. But we also know that some of the gaps, they widen those first 2 years, math and language arts, math, science, social studies. So the ability in real time for those students to learn those subjects in their first language while they're learning English will really limit that dip, that loss that occurs when students that are English learners come into our district. We gave you those numbers. It's a significant number. So by August 15th of next year, actually I think, where's Kim? They start installation next Monday. So by next week, we will have this service in every single one of our classrooms. So regardless of the 120 languages the students speak, we have more than 70 home languages they will be able to learn in the classroom. We also know, I've talked about ready to learn rates and the board's commitment to expanding early childhood education, because we know that in terms of effect size, when students come to kindergarten ready to learn, it's the number one thing we can do to limit learning loss going forward. And so our major goals, our expansions in the building of our first district-wide early childhood center on Highway 42 is going to make a huge difference. But we also know, just like that, if you're a kindergarten, if you've ever been, as an elementary principal, if you've ever been a kindergarten teacher, and you have 15 students ready to learn and 5 that are not, there's one way by which we teach, and we drop back to the support. If you have 15 students that are not ready to learn and 5 that are, it's a game changer. So the focus the board has and the commitment to getting more students ready to learn for kindergarten is going to be instrumental. Likewise, for our classrooms that have a high number of EL speakers, right, English learners, the ability for them to have instruction, right, to the standards in math and science and social studies can sometimes be limiting, because so many students are disengaged only because they're not able to follow the instruction. So this simple translation service is just a game changer. It's similar in many ways to getting students ready to learn. When we do our school takeovers every month, I've told this story before. I was at Ackerman Elementary School, and a teacher came up to me and said, of the 20 students in my class, 9 are English learners, and they speak 5 languages. And it's just simply, just trying to maintain and engage all of the students at once. And this is a simple way using modern technology to do that. So the board has made a huge commitment to this. We are purchasing, I don't know how many devices, how many rooms do we have? Do you know? 1,400, okay. Okay, and so for every single classroom, it's going to be a game changer. So this is, again, part of our work this year, clearly one of the most, I think, meaningful and effective things that we'll be doing as we prepare for 25-26. And we will be the first school district, actually in the United States, I believe, that will be universal comprehensive translation services in every classroom. So something to be proud of. As board member Byrd said, I'm tired of being last. I want to be first, and first in Kentucky or first nationally. I think she's okay with either, but it's nice sometimes more both. So next, yeah, well, sure, first in the world. I don't. Well, I'm not sure I'll go that far. But empowered workforce, the second one of our goals. We have a few components of that. I mentioned earlier when we were doing our 30-year recognition, our stay interviews. And, oftentimes the conversation that we have with our employees is after they've resigned, right? And that doesn't make sense because it costs more to replace an employee than does it keep them. And we also want high employee satisfaction. So this year, I know the idea came about in about September, October, and Eric Ball, directing HR, Kim Best, working on facilities. We said, what are the chances that before the end of this year, we can do stay interviews for every single employee that's in a speed limit year, so 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 30. And they said, well, that's going to take a lot. What about next year? And we said, oh, we want this data. We want to know why they're here, why they're staying. And if there's anything we can do, right, to improve so that they don't resign and go elsewhere. And so, Kim worked with her staff. They have 2 really incredible stay interview rooms that are used all the time. Eric's staff does most of the interviews. It's a standard interview questionnaire so that we can make sure that the data is comparable, so we can understand the trends. This year, we did more than 300, close to 400 of those interviews. And, at the end, in almost every single case, the employee thanked us, and they said, I've never had the opportunity to sit down with a district administrator or staff member and give my perspective. And our employees want to be heard. It's I love a good formula, so it's a formulaic way to do it. I know that the folks that we represented tonight, that we recognized tonight for 30 years was the group I got. So I had an entire day of doing stay interviews. And it was emotional. I mean, half of them made me cry. It doesn't take much. I mean, Wyatt made me cry tonight. So anyone, when someone cries, I cry. So, but nonetheless, the stories were just incredible. I just sat and listened with awe and amazement of the differences every single one of those employees made. And so we have a database. And you know what? It paints a different picture. Why? Because we're not just hearing those 1, 2, or 3 emails that we occasionally get when someone resigns that comes to me and the board and everyone that will read them. But what we now have is a counter narrative. We have the story of 400 employees who love what they do, but also gave us good feedback for improvements. And it's making a huge difference. It's changing the work. And it's something we've implemented and we will continue to do. So every 5 years. So we got to change our gifts every 5 years, right? So I get a coffee mug in 4 more years. All right. Next, we have implemented employee superintendent school-based conversations. I know this is something that in my original conversations, board member Young brought to my attention saying, it's just how do we make sure that you're more accessible? So, this year working with food services, we had coffee at every single school, the district office, maintenance, and it's been a great opportunity to really just go into the schools, be available, and just listen. And, it's not to solve all the problems, but just to listen. And doing that, we develop qualitative trend data that we can then plug into some analysis to really guide our work. And it made a big difference. Our employees made a difference, hearing the stories of our employees, their concerns, the things that they need in the classroom, personally, has really guided our work. And we did 30 of them this year, and we're going to do 30 of them again next year. So it's been great, and I believe it's the first time we've really had this formalized of a process. And I know board members are always invited. Many of you have come to some of those or many of those, and I really appreciate that. Next, increased salaries and wages. this is something that we want to point out, that we've increased our salaries and wages by a total of 7.8% over the last 2 years. This has been a priority of the board, is just to continue to remain competitive at a time when school funding is not keeping up with inflation. And so that requires a lot of efficiency. It requires just making sure that every dollar is committed in a way that maximizes its strength. And so, we gave some data here that our step increases average 1.75%. That's an automatic increase in addition to the 7.8%. I want to point out that inflation for the 12 months preceding 24-25 was approximately 3.32%, and from July to February 25 has averaged 2.8%. So what does that mean? That means our raises over the last 2 years has exceeded inflation, something that we hear about a lot, and it makes a big difference for all of our employees. Next, related to that, we also targeted beginning employee salaries and wages. And this is significant because, as you know, the board received external audits on salary and wages. We looked at all of the northern Kentucky school districts where we are really where most of our competition takes place. We also looked at some of the like districts of our size, including Fayette, across the state. And we also looked at trend data, and that report is available online. We've sent it out multiple times for the community to do, and it created some urgency. This year for the first time, as we bargained, we said we're going to have beginning teachers at the table. We need beginning teacher voices. We had 2 beginning teachers, one with 0 years experience and one with 2 years experience at the bargaining table, along with me and the board. And what we said was that if we continue to do percentages only, we're going to continue to exacerbate the problem, and that is the wage gap's going to continue to grow. And if you think about that in terms of learning perspectives, if you think about the fact that would we accept academic scores and where the top performing students and the bottom performing students continue to widen, right? No, we want to make sure that we are closing the achievement gap. Well, same for wages. But yet, if you look historically over the last 20 to 30 years, that's all we've done. We've done basically percent increases across the board. So our wage gap just continues to grow. And so armed with this data, the board, the district admin really came to the table and said, we have to end with salaries, with the wage gap reduced, and the slope reduced. The slope, of course, is from your vantage point, from beginning to the end, we need to move this up, which reduces the M, or the slope. And so the result of that, right, was a $3,000 additional increase for beginning teachers. We did that by, as I said, using an inverse relationship and adding $100 to row 29, $200 to row 28, $300. On up, we have 30 rows, which resulted with $3,000 additional dollars. And then we correlated that for our support staff, our hourly wage earners, which meant that they got a 3% raise, but they got a minimum raise of $1 an hour. So, we are approving those scales tonight. The board's approved this at our March board meeting. But in essence, that reduced our pay gap by $1,832. And I don't think we're done, but it was a significant first step. And it's made a huge difference for our for hiring. We were at a career fair recently, and we had teachers from other counties coming in. I remember there was a couple came in. One was language arts, one was social studies, and they had noticed, they heard that our starting salaries were $50,000, and so combined, their overall compensation increase between the two of them was going to be $25,000. And they're high quality teachers. So, we're working hard to attract the best and the brightest, and to fill the limited number of vacancies we have. So it's really proud of this work we did. And this is really a new concept to Boone County. And I think that it's going to be the beginning of about, ideally 3 more years, so that we're setting that stretch goal in 3 years of getting our starting salaries to $60,000. Next, we approved the first ever local annuity program for Boone County schools. And we're using that as an attraction and retention system. And again, I thank everyone at the table for being willing to consider this. As mentioned earlier, in many states, there are 4 layers to retirement. There's Social Security, there's the local pension, there's often a state annuity, and then there's a local annuity. And in Kentucky, there's 1 layer. And that 1 layer is changing as we get new tiers. And so our tier 4 employees actually put more in. Some of the benefits are getting diminished. And, we started having a conversation about what can we do to really give our employees that we would recognize here 30 years down the road, a second layer of retirement. It's the right thing to do for them. And so we also know that through compounding interest, if they're 22 and they stay for 30 to 35 years, actuarially speaking, in a conservative estimate, it could give them a nest egg of an additional $750,000 in savings, which if you take a 4% withdrawal is $30,000 in supplemental income, and can really help our teachers. I jokingly said 30 years from now, I don't remember who that guy was. He's on a rocking chair somewhere, but they'll thank me for the idea. And they'll thank us and the board and the people that were part of the bargaining committee for doing this. So as part of that local annuity, everyone will be getting a 1% match. However, as you see mentioned here, as an attraction bonus and a retention bonus, employees in their first 5 years will get an additional $2,000 per year. So it's a $10,000 sign-on bonus. And that $10,000 sign-on bonus, right, is $2,000 per year with a 5-year vesting requirement, because we know that people tend to leave the profession in years 2 and 3. As I stated in the stay interview conversation, we know that it costs more to replace a teacher than to keep a teacher. So if you think about that, if it costs more to replace them, what can we do to keep them? And this is a small investment we can make. And so what that means is, if a teacher is making $50,548, which is year 0, rank 3, and they put in 1%, so we're going to say $500. We're going to match it with $500, and we're going to put in $2,000 more. So that means we're putting in $2,500 to their $500. In 5 years, they will have put in $2,500, and we will have contributed $12,500, which means that for a teacher fresh out of college, average age of 22, although we have so many people coming in, by 27, they'll have a nest egg of $15,000. And if you just look actuarially at projections of $15,000 invested in an annuity, the growth to 59.5, assuming they take it as early as possible, is significant. If they continue to contribute 1%, it's really going to give them a huge second layer of retirement benefit. It's the right thing to do, but it also is, a special thanks to our Teachers Association, those at the table who said, yeah, this makes sense that we're going to give more money to our beginning teachers than we are to our veteran teachers in the 1%. So, I think it's going to be a deal breaker. We already, by May 30th, are setting up collective meetings here at Ralph Rush, but individual meetings for all 3,700 employees so they can understand and sign up for this 1% annuity match. So it's another example of something we did this year. Moving on to stakeholder engagement. Special thanks to Kathy Rootman, who led this. We also had no system in place for communication this year. We had parents telling us that they used 6 different communication tools with their kids at 3 different schools, and it was all over the place. We also know some of the programs that were free quite possibly ran afoul of federal regulations for data privacy and for student privacy. And so we said we wanted to adopt a streamlined communication district-wide, pre-K to 12, which we didn't have. There's some savings because site-based who are purchasing their own programs now, everyone can use one. Parents can have one login and one site for all of the communication. It also adds some enhanced protections for our students and our teachers because all communication, you'll see policy coming, I don't know if Mary Ann, who's pinch hitting, of course, for Olivia, but we're working on a policy that will require all communication to go through this. It protects our staff members and avoids the cell phone to cell phone texting that isn't cached and collected and that parents can't monitor. That's also, unfortunately, where the greatest percentage of grooming cases occur across the United States. And it's how we can protect not only our students and our staff, but it also significantly reduces district liability. So starting 25-26, we'll have one communication platform. Kathy led that process with a committee, and I know we're rolling it out. We're doing some professional development at the end of this year. We have a couple extra days at the end of this year, and then getting ready for the start of next school year. So this is really the first time we've had streamlined communication district-wide. Next, increased community forums and targeted newsletters. As you're well aware, we've spoken tonight about the mental health crisis in our community. We've also had other topics by which we're doing more targeted newsletters and more increased community forums, a way to engage with our community, provide support when it's needed, but also to get feedback. And this conversation is, I believe, is going to roll into some parent university conversations next year, and just continuing to provide the significant support that our families need, but also allow two-way communication with our families and make sure that we're providing the support that they need, and that they're really part of the solution. Lastly, on stakeholder engagement, as you know, we're increasing family resources and enrollment services. We're looking by 27-28 to actually have a family resource and enrollment center, real close to here actually. But for now, it's really just adding in-person support services. We spend more hours helping families, in some cases, do enroll online or look for online resources. And we're just trying to provide that in-person support for people who need it, particularly for those new to our community, for our English learners. And so that's really a big change for 25-26, and we know it's going to provide another layer of support for families. And lastly, Operation Resource Optimization. I know that we were talking a while back about 6 tenets of our technology, information, and communication enhancements for next year. And one of those is simply we've not made the investments that we need to make in cybersecurity and data security. So we've committed more than $400,000 to internal and external reviews, enhancing those safety features. This is really just cost avoidance. And it's something that we've added as a priority this year. We've built it in to the 2025 budget, and it's going to provide significant more protections for our students, our staff, and really for the district. Another example on safety enhancements. In addition to, we were talking about the translation services, using the same programs. We'll be one of the first districts to roll out through the audio enhancement company, really new alerts, safety features, as well as intercoms. We're spending $50,000 to $100,000 to replace all the antiquated intercoms. We can run them through the IT system now. And what that means is that all the video monitors in the hallway, which will traditionally have clocks, will be able to display other warnings. We know for our English learners, when there's an alarm that goes off, there may be a lack of certainty if they need to go into a corner, if it's an active shooter, if it's a lockdown under a desk or to a secure place for a tornado, or outside for a fire. And clearly those aren't the same thing. But because we're combining all of these things, their safety enhancements with the translation services, our students will be able to receive in their own language instructions when there are safety concerns. We're updating all of our intercom systems. There's more targeted intercom systems. And many of our teachers have communicated to us, they need better ways to alert when there's safety concerns in their classroom. So just like on your cell phone, if you squeeze it, usually accidentally, but you can squeeze on your microphone system, it will immediately set off alerts in the office. We'll know where that teacher is, if they're in the gymnasium, if they're on the playground, if they're in their classroom. Also, when we do lockdowns, it will allow the teachers to communicate directly to the office if they're aware, if their doors are locked. And then, of course, from the office, we can manage all that. So I know that Kim is really working to roll all of this out. All of these safety enhancements and all the intercom systems will be updated for the start of the 25-26 school year as well. So again, this is something that is in many cases saving money because of the antiquated intercom costs we have, but it's also doing it in a more efficient way, a more effective way, and really communicating in a more timely way. So proud of that. An aligned organization chart, that's of course one of the things that the board had asked back in the summer of 2024. And so tonight's the first step of that, and that's an alignment, a greater alignment of the district organization chart. You'll see examples of that tonight. We're reducing our executive cabinet by 10%. Which of course means additional work for many of the people that are flanking this room. But also it's coming at a savings of more than $90,000. And so, I'm pleased for that work. And then we're continuing to look at our org chart. We are really beginning to align our org chart with our two key charges, right? Learning and safety. And so safety and operations and curriculum and learning. And you're going to see that play out, and we're going to get greater clarity for our families, for our staff, for our students to really understand where the responsibilities lie, and then developing new metrics and new evaluation systems for people to make sure that we're evaluating based upon our expectations. The next step will be looking at our director level, and then I call it the C-suite, coaches, coordinators, and all of those folks, really just to make sure that we're providing the support we need, that we're being as efficient as possible, but also making sure that we're being as effective as possible. So that's our next layer of review related to an aligned organization chart. Next, operation resource optimization allocation review. We conducted an allocation review, and if you look at so Fayette, don't just to point out you have the lowest student-teacher ratio. So let's hope the federal government doesn't reduce federal funding, because what you'll see is that the districts with higher poverty tend to have more federal dollars. We're one of the lowest, not only in the amount we're second lowest in the amount of SEEK money we receive from the state. We're also only receive 9% of our budget from the federal government. We may complain about that, but then when there are reductions, we don't really have quite the sting of a district that has higher free and reduced lunch rates. So we did a comprehensive study on allocation review, and what we found was that when you look at other districts like us, we really have one of the lower student-to-teacher ratios. And that's a good thing. However, the question is, what do we want to do, and what's that relationship on the continuum between allocations and salaries? And if we want to disproportionately increase salaries over the next couple of years, right, we need to have a conversation about allocations. This year we reduced 20 allocations, 19, actually 21, 2 at the district level, and 19 in the building levels. But we were able to use that savings to create an annuity match. And so we're trying to do this effectively and cautiously, but really making sure that we continue to keep our wages at inflationary levels, ideally, to make sure we're competitive. Because quite honestly, if our salaries and wages aren't high enough, if we have positions that aren't filled, then it's not gonna help us to add more positions. We haven't filled the ones we have, and we're near 100% now. And so we're really, I think we will be 100% staffed for the start of the 25-26 school year. So as you know, as part of the overall review this year, we really took a look at our allocations, and we're adjusting accordingly. And lastly, strategic priority budgeting. As you know, we've had lots of conversations about how we're more strategic in looking at our reduced staffing, what those savings looks like, what percent of our money is going to, right now, 87% of our money goes towards salaries and wages, a little higher than what the state recommends, but it does prove that we're putting our money towards our staff. But we're also doing that by being efficient. As stated, we have one of the highest efficiency when you look at student to school ratios. We are the best in the state. And what that means is that means we have less office support staff. We can have less because we don't have small schools. We're averaging, it was around 900. It might be in the 800s. What is that? So we average 800 per school. So as a district of 20,600, the fact that we have 27 schools is pretty significant. If Fayette wasn't here, I'd point out that they have twice the population and they have 4 times the number of schools. And then because of that, because they, it's true, but because they, sorry, Dale, do you get to speak after this? But what that means is that, right, they have twice the number of disproportionately 200% as many, generally office staff workers and some of those support staff things you need to, because it's expensive, their basic costs with running buildings. So because of that efficiency and that strategic priority budgeting, we're able to put more of that money towards salaries and wages. And lastly, we've talked about our efficiency through systemic efforts, whether it's communication, whether it's our curriculum. And, when I came in over and over again, you told me, we want to protect the uniqueness of our schools, protect autonomy where we should. However, we need to move from a system of schools to a school system. And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing it strategically. It's making us more efficient. It's allowing to make sure that we are more fair in the resources for all of our students, and quite honestly, more effective. And I think that's about it. Chaz. And I'd be remiss to not point out that these ideas came really from not only the listening tours and the conversations with the board and the community, but our principals. I see a couple of them still back there. I know Stacy's back there. And the reality is we have monthly meetings with principal feedback. It's this constant feedback loop in which they're evaluating, they're giving us input, sometimes brutal. We set leadership priorities. They said, you got to communicate better with us. It's got to be more two-way. We want to hear from they said they wanted to hear from the superintendent. That they may give different feedback next year. I don't know. Sometimes I can be a bit circumlocutory or verbose. But nonetheless, that feedback really guided this work. And Stacy, what have we already started on in the April meeting and the May meeting, getting feedback as we get ready for which school year?
Next year and the year after.
26, 27, because as they're well aware at a systems level, there's really little else we can do for next year. That it's really now in the hands of our principals, our teachers. As a system, we're always 2 years out. We have to be. If not, we're not creating a sustainable system. We're being disruptive. And if we're disruptive, we're going to see scores go down. We have to make sure that the work we do is sustainable. And to do that, we have to be mindful that there's nothing that we're going to solve today to fix tomorrow. That's the work of our teachers. That's the work of our principals and our counselors. Our work is visionary and it's long range. And so, this is the progress report of 24-25 that really is the playbook, if you will, for 25-26. And we can't rest there, right? What we have to do, working with our principals, working with this team that's flanking us on the side, is to immediately begin the process. And we started in March. We have intense work we're going to do this summer to begin mapping out a general sketch of what we need to do differently for 26-27. We're going to set those goals. We're going to develop the specifics, and we're going to have it finalized by December of 25. And then we begin working on the details and the implementation in the spring, right? Because in essence, we have until March of 26. So we really have 9 to 10 months to get ready for the 26-27 school year. If not, it won't be sustainable. It won't be systemic. It may not be fair. It may leave students behind. And most importantly, it may be disruptive. So that's the work we did. That's my progress report, Fred. It's a little different than the leadership standards, but nonetheless, it's been a pleasure to serve you all this year. And really, it's been one of the best years of 15. I feel blessed to be here. Thank you all. This is online. All the information is there for you. And again, it's going to be back to you all this summer to say, what are we missing? What do we need to do more of, right? Those individual interviews are coming back again so that you can continue to provide the guidance, because I don't want to, I'm tired of guessing. I don't want to guess what you want, and you shouldn't be guessing what we need. We have to be providing you with the data, with the relevancy, with the research, so that you can make informed decision, and then you can help us prioritize so that we can meet your expectations. And I think we've done that this year, and we plan to continue to do it. And again, last thing I'll say is, if you look at these folks on the side, they've done the work, right? I'm a glorified middleman. They have done significant work on all of these things in details, and they could have talked about each of them in greater detail, they would have probably taken longer, maybe. But nonetheless, I thank them as well for the report. And that concludes our 24-25 progress report.